Hello, one and all, and a big creative careers welcome to this, the final episode, episode 4 of season 2 of Creative Careers. My name is Callum. I work for Space, an organisation based in Devon, southwest England, working with young people. And this is the Creative Careers series where I speak to creative professionals and learn about how they got there and how they can help you potentially do the same. We've spoken in the past to plenty of industry professionals. We're talking band managers, composers, we're talking about digital content creators, film producer, and in this series we spoke to YouTubers, professional storytellers, and this week it is the time of filmmaker Annie Martin to help us go through the processes of getting into filmmaking and how you can use your skills on YouTube, but also in the world of general film production. So I'd like to say a big Creative Careers thank you to everyone that has supported us on this journey, Series 1 and Series 2. And thank you everyone for watching currently. And also I'd like to say thanks to Space for helping us put this on, and the AYCH project, who we've partnered up with to make this happen, and Interreg, our funders. Without them, there's no Creative Careers. So, because it's the last episode, as I said, there aren't any further episodes next week, so you've got your Monday evenings back. But maybe not, because you could watch back previous episodes and satisfy that Creative Careers craving that you will be experiencing moving forward. So you can subscribe to the Space YouTube channel for more young person-centered content, but the Creative Careers stuff will be drawing to an end. So this week, as I mentioned earlier on, the interview is with Annie Martin, and she'll be talking about climbing, of course, because she is the co-founder of both the Beta magazine and the Bouldering DabRats YouTube channel. And then we'll also be talking about filmmaking and her personal triumphs. And right at the end of the interview, she'll be giving you some tips and tricks on how to follow in her footsteps and manage a portfolio career with many fingers and many pies. I'll be back at the end for some final goodbyes and to provide you all with the link to our Discord live Q&A, which will be taking part straight after this interview on Discord, where Annie will be there to answer all your questions. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. But there's enough from me. Let's hear from Annie. All right, here we go. Hello, Annie. Happy Monday. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
How's things? How's life? How's lockdown 3.0 treating you?
It's not too bad. Enjoyed the snow over the weekend. Got outside a little bit. So yeah, keeping busy.
Are you a snowman or a snow angel kind of person?
Well, in a park in London, I think snow angels could be a little bit risky because you never know.
Yeah, public parks, you never know. What they say. That's high risk lying on the ground.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, lots and lots of dog owners around.
Some responsible, some not so much.
Yes.
We're not here to talk about the responsibility of dog owners in central London. We're here to talk about you. Who are you and what do you do, Annie Martin?
So I am a filmmaker. I work part-time for a small production company as a writer and director, and I also run a YouTube channel called Bouldering DabRats, which is a climbing YouTube channel about women in the sport. And I also co-founded this year a climbing magazine called Beta Magazine, which has similar themes in sort of equal representation and diverse storytelling.
Cool. And you're quite a modest person, so I don't think you're the sort of person to blow your own trumpets. But so how many followers are we talking across the platforms?
So DabRats, we've been running for just under 3 years, and we have about 30,000 followers and subscribers across YouTube and Instagram.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And I'm sure you've been asked this so many times, but there will be people watching this who have never been indoor rock climbing before, and they will have no clue what a DabRat is.
Yes, the age-old question. Yeah. No, most climbers also don't know what a DabRat is, because it is a word of our own invention. When climbing, there is a term called dab, which is yes, also that. But when you're climbing, we boulder, so it's a type of climbing where you don't use any ropes, and you don't go that high normally, so about 4 or 5 meters off the ground. But there's this term dab, which is when you accidentally touch a hold, or maybe a rock or a tree or something that is not within the defined route of your climb. It's a bit nerdy and niche, but in the sort of upper echelons of climbing culture, a dab could invalidate the success of your climb. So we called ourselves DabRats because it's a sort of nod to maybe not being very good and being a bit like casual with it all.
Love that. I am also a bit of a climber in my spare time, and dabs are plenty.
Yes.
So I'm going to clear up a couple of other things. So you work for a video and filmmaking studio.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about that. What's the name of the studio?
Yeah, so we're called Grey Moth Film Productions. It's a little film production in South London. So I live in London. I've lived here for 4.5 years. And I started work at Grey Moth just over a year ago. We make all kinds of media content. A lot of it's commercial. So we work for clients like the RHS, the Royal Horticultural Society.
Nice.
University.
They're the ones that put on the Chelsea Flower Show.
Yes, yeah. So we actually, I haven't done this yet because last year it was cancelled, but we do loads of coverage of the Chelsea Flower Show.
Cool.
So I'm looking forward to getting to go eventually. Yeah, so it's kind of a mixture of things, commercial, plus we also are kind of at the moment working to do more original content, like fiction and documentary.
Nice. So yeah, film studios, like, they can quite often just kind of specialize in a whole load of different niches, but it looks like Grey Moth is quite well spread, I suppose, in doing your documentaries, young filmmakers, commercial.
Yeah, so it's very varied. At the moment we focus more on like short form, so we're not like a feature film or documentary production studio. Maybe one day. The company's quite young, so at the moment there's only 3 of us that work there. I was brought in as the first formal employee last year, so it's growing. The company's growing, which is really nice to be sort of a part of that. And yeah, we're looking to expand into more exciting projects.
Yeah, well, that brings me quite nicely on to my next question, which is, how did you get the job with Grey Moth, and what does an average day of work look like?
So I got the job quite soon after I graduated from university. I went to film school at UAL, University of the Arts London, and yeah, I'd graduated with a bit of a sort of I felt like I needed a break from filmmaking, and I remember saying to my partner, there's just, the only job right now that I would take in the film industry is like a little production company where I could do all sorts of things. I could, take a camera for a day and do some editing and work with a small team, but that doesn't exist. I'm never going to get that. So I kind of messed around for a few months and spent all my savings. And then I got this email from my tutor who had sent on my now boss to me, and he was looking for basically exactly that, someone who could write and direct, operate a camera, do some editing, like a versatile all-rounder. Nice. Kind of filmmaker. So I was really,
what you were looking for.
It was exactly what I was looking for. It's the dream position. So I leapt at that, and luckily kind of got on really well with Archie, my boss. Yeah, so that's how I got that, through good recommendation and a stroke of luck.
Lovely. So what does an average day look like? It sounds like, being so versatile, it sounds like maybe no day's the same.
Yes, there isn't really an average day. I can tell you what I've been doing a bit last week.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, so at the moment we're mostly, I mean, there's no actual filming going on, but normally I would be out shooting sometimes on different things, sometimes by myself, sometimes as like a second role with my boss. But at the moment, most of it's at home at the desk. So last week I spent kind of half of my time, I run our social media outlets at the moment. Due to my other social media experience, I've been kind of roped into doing it for us as well, which is really fun. So making small edits with footage from previous projects to go out on Instagram. But I was also working on 2 applications for different funding opportunities, one from Netflix and one from the Pat Llewellyn Foundation, which is like a TV kind of support network for filmmakers, and they do all kinds of funding opportunities. So we're applying with different concepts and ideas to get some funding, which is really fun. So it's sort of, that's like editing work and then producer director work kind of rolled into one.
Yeah, that's mega. That sounds like 2 different ends of the journey of a film being made. So sort of getting the funding before even anything gets shot on a camera to cutting it all up and putting it together at the end. That's got to be pretty fun. I hope those funding bids come off so you can actually work it all the way through.
Yeah, for sure. I think like what's really nice about doing this job is that I do get to experience, you know, the different stages of filmmaking, even if it's not the same project from start to finish. Because as someone that maybe just specializes in one role, sometimes you won't get to experience all of that. You know, if you just work in camera, you'll only ever be on set. You won't, you know, get to develop the idea in the first place or see it being edited. So yeah, it's nice to like see everything kind of go through.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. So would you be able to pick a best bit and also a worst bit, I suppose, about your job? As a writer and director with Grey Moth.
Yeah. I think, well, the best bit is having, like, just developing an idea that you're interested in. And I think it's probably the best and worst bit, actually, is the same thing. Like developing an idea that makes you excited, and just chasing that down, doing that research, seeing it come together, getting a team around you that seem to kind of vibe on the same level, they kind of get what you're on about. But that can also be really daunting and scary because you're, you know, putting your idea out there and asking people to trust in you, and you know, what if they don't get it, and what if it's, you know, a load of rubbish. So I think that's kind of the best and worst part at the same time. You have to kind of juggle it a little bit.
Yeah, I got you. So we mentioned early doors that you have your hand in a few different projects, your YouTubing, your Beta magazine, your Grey Moth. And this is all part of what I think is generally termed a portfolio career. And that's really common for young creatives, particularly sort of artsy people. It doesn't sort of follow that just more typical corporate approach to sort of your career. So you get qualified, you get a grad scheme, and then you just stay in the same company until you die. How do you personally, at this stage, how do you manage sort of juggling those multiple projects and opportunities all going on at once, and where's best to invest your energy?
It's a really tricky skill, I think. Like I'm still learning how to, I think in the last year I've got a lot better at listening to my gut and chasing things when they feel like they're most appropriate. But it really is just, you know, it's kind of a measuring act of where do I feel pulled, what, you know, what practically is gonna, you know, I guess, you know, do you have an afternoon spare? Do you have an hour? Like, where can you put that energy and time that will have the most outcome? You know, it might be that I have an hour spare, so looking at some emails on the magazine email list will be more effective than starting an edit for a DabRats video, you know. And I think, yeah, balancing that with also looking after yourself and taking some time out to just breathe and relax is also really important. So yeah, I think
a lot of people are feeling that in lockdown, and then especially those that are sort of self-employed, where all of your time is your own, and yet you're kind of confined to a certain place all the time. So it's quite hard. I imagine it's quite hard to turn off, to know when to stop working in the evening and know when to start working in the morning, so you don't just get into sort of self-destructive habits.
Yeah, for sure. A solid routine is always good. But yeah, I think I always plan ahead. I always, look at my week and think, okay, how much time do I want to give to each thing? How much time do I, have spare? And I always plan, I know that I'm going to spend 3 days at work, and that gives me the weekend and 2 more days. What do I want to give to what? So that's good, just coming up with a rough structure and trying to stick to it helps me set some boundaries.
Yeah, good self-discipline. Right, so let's rewind a little bit and work out how we got to here. So I don't want to put words in your mouth. Would you call yourself a Devonian?
Yes. It's true and true.
Good, but you are originally from Somerset.
Yeah.
And you moved to Devon to go to school sort of in Ashburton area.
Yeah.
12ish. And is it fair to say again that you had a pretty alternative education experience?
Yes.
Talk a bit about that for us.
Yeah, so I kind of jumped in and out of state schools up until I was about 12. And I was in my first year of secondary school at a state school back in Somerset, and it was not going very well. So that kind of prompted the move to Devon. Me and my mum pitched up and left and moved to Ashburton, where I went to Sands School, which is an alternative school. And the sort of structure of that school meant that I was able to focus a lot on my creative and art interests, which was brilliant because that's kind of always been where I've landed and things I've been interested in. So I could dedicate quite a lot of time in the art room there, painting and fiddling around with cameras. So yeah, that kind of, I suppose, settled the seed of interest in art and film and things.
Brilliant. And yeah, so it's there where your sort of your photography and filmmaking passion, was it fair to say passion?
Yeah.
Interests, passion, where it starts sort of growing and you start sort of cutting your teeth a bit.
Yeah. And I kind of got to a point where it was time to pick some A-levels or at least structure my GCSEs to look at A-levels and maybe university, and kind of thinking about that path. And I'd already felt like, okay, I'm really getting interested in film. I'd started kind of making some weird little films of my own on a rubbish little camera that I'd managed to get my hands on. And I was sort of looking at colleges and thinking, okay, do I want to do like a full-time A-level course just on film, or do I want to do film with some other subjects? And I just decided that I couldn't choose what to do without having more experience in filmmaking. So it just kind of felt like too big of a decision to commit to put all my eggs in one basket without even experiencing the basket.
All the eggs?
All the eggs.
No, the basket. No, it's the basket.
Meeting the chicken? I don't know.
It's without meeting the chicken. Amazing.
So I decided to leave school a bit early, and this was, I think, the year before the law changed, and I think now you have to stay in education until 18.
Education or apprenticeship.
Okay, yeah. So I kind of just missed that, and I was able to leave school. Kind of, it wasn't for a full year; it was like half a year. But in that time, I basically just reached out to every person that I knew, just to see, like, who do I know, maybe not directly, but maybe indirectly, that works in film or TV or something. And I was lucky enough to realise that I had this connection in an ex-student from my school called Luke Flegg, and he worked in film, and he basically just took me under his wing. I kind of got some jobs with him, shooting some smaller kind of things, but the main clincher was a job as a lighting assistant on an independent feature film, which was just amazing. You know, it was so fun.
So just to clarify what's going on here. So age 16, instead of moving into A levels or taking the level 3 qualification, vocational, or maybe going to an apprenticeship, you decide, let's jump out of the mainstream education pond, hit off a load of emails to everyone you know and some people you don't.
Yeah.
And anyone working movies, Mr. Flegg gets back saying, "Yep, join me on this film and be my lighting assistant."
Yeah, pretty
That's
much.
wicked. And you're 16.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cool. So how did that help your decision making? So you started off by saying like you didn't fancy that sort of like straight progression of sort of A levels, university, job, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So how did this change your approach to decision making?
Well, to me, what it felt like was just a flavour of what my work could be on the other side of all this potential education. You know, I didn't feel like I could commit, I don't know, 2 years in college, 3 years at uni into a subject that I hadn't actually seen in the flesh in the industry, and, you know, had any kind of sense of what this could be like. So it just gave me that bit of reassurance of, yeah, this is actually really cool. I didn't know, you know, I didn't come out of this 6 months or half a year kind of experience being like, oh, I definitely want to be a lighting assistant. You know, I just thought the process is fascinating. There's so many different roles in this industry that interest me. I could end up being any one of these people. So it kind of solidified my interest. But I also kind of, I made the decision to go to college and do a level 3 BTEC in media, TV and film, because I wanted to just have the opportunity to make my own films a bit and kind of experiment and be creative, and I just wanted to learn about film in general, because you don't really learn like theory and things from being on a film set. You just learn how to run around and lift heavy things.
I guess that was useful for climbing training, I suppose.
Yes, yeah.
So your experiences in that, you're then level 3 BTEC. You then faced with the question, we're at that point in your life story, which I'm sure a lot of our viewers are at right now, when they're thinking, I'm just about to finish school, college, apprenticeship, A levels, whatever it is, and thinking, crikey, what next? So how did you approach that question, and what did you end up doing?
Oh, it's really hard. It's such a hard decision to make, and I agonized over this for a long time, and it was very stressful. So I wouldn't like minimize the whole experience at all, because it is really, really difficult. But it obviously feels like it feels a lot easier when in hindsight, you know. What I felt when I left college was actually very similar to how I felt when I started college, which was, this thing really interests me still. I don't have a specialism yet that I want to keep going with, as in camera or lighting or directing. You know, the whole process still fascinates me. I don't know exactly what kind of film I want to work in either. Like, I was leaning towards documentary at this point, but I wasn't completely sure. So it kind of felt like I still wanted more time to learn, but a step up. Also, I felt like I needed to be in London, but London is expensive, and I didn't have the, you know, family support or backing to just be able to come here and live with their help. And I, you know, I don't know how old I was. was a bit older, 19 or something, I didn't feel like I could just get a job, pay my way, leave home, do all those things that, you know, you have to do as an independent adult and try and break into the film industry. So for me, it felt like a kind of blend between being able to access London with the support of a, you know, student grant and live here and get here as a location, but also like the kind of gift of giving 3 years to myself where I could learn more, meet people that were young and passionate about filmmaking like me, and hopefully make some films that I enjoyed. So yeah, it was a real juggle between accessing this place, this city, and also what the course had to offer.
So that's sort of a two birds one stone thing. So uni is a means to an end to get you into London, but it also helps you refine your skills in creative projects and filmmaking.
Yeah.
Was it what you hoped it would be?
It wasn't day to day what I'd hoped it would be. I think film or any subject in the arts is really hard to teach and be taught, because you're teaching people something that's, at the end of the day, it's subjective. But what it did give us was this, you know, it taught you the rules, so then you could go break them. And I think that's really valuable. And it also, you know, it was going to a place every day with the purpose of thinking about film, and just that in itself was really valuable. And just being in a place that was full of creatives, and, you know, the uni that I went to was kind of, there were exhibitions going up and down all the time, and it was just this really kind of vibrant place. So there were some things that it wasn't, and there was a lot of things that it was. Yeah, I think overall it was a good. Oh no, it's just. I think overall it was the right choice.
What was the best project you worked on?
Gosh, I did some really, again, really varied things. So even at uni, I still didn't really specialize. Up until my final major project in the final year. So in the last year, you make one film, and that's kind of like your calling card to leave with. So the pressure is really on. And I just, you know, I'd been doing the climbing channel for like 2 years at this point, or a year and a bit. So my kind of interest and passion into climbing and women in adventure sports was really kind of escalating, and I just felt like I've got to make something that represents me, because up until that point I hadn't really done that. I just kind of observed other people doing it. So I made a climbing documentary about women in adventure sport and their relationship with fear.
And I've watched it, and it's not just climbing. So you've got a pro surfer, you've got a pro downhill mountain bike person.
Yes, the person.
Mountain bike isn't seem the right word. Mountain rider. But you know what we mean. And then a couple of climbers, yourself included.
Yes.
What was it like being on both sides of the camera?
Gosh. You know, even though I was used to being on camera for the channel, this was completely different, because it was not only did it feel like my whole degree was riding on it, but it was also just a much more serious and vulnerable situation, and it was also about me conquering my fear. Where I climbed a very high boulder in a kind of style that really scares me. So in climbing you have like different labels assigned to the angle of the rock that you're climbing, and this was a slab, which means it's inclining but very, very slightly. So it means that you rely on your feet more than your hands, and it's notoriously scary. but I have always avoided it because I am not good at dealing with my fear. So yeah, the pressure was very much on for this film, but I did manage to climb it, which was fantastic. And yeah, the story that I had wanted to tell, I was able to tell. I had a lot of discussions with tutors about what I would do if I couldn't climb the rock.
Yeah, how do you pivot that way? I guess that I think having seen it, and I'd suggest everyone goes away and watches it 'cause it's great and it's not all that long. I think it still would have been an impactful documentary even if you didn't make it.
Yeah. I mean, we spoke about the whole thing, the whole message behind the film was, you know, it's about trying. Really, that's how you conquer your fear. You just try. Whether you succeed or not is kind of irrelevant. So I think it would have worked.
Yeah,
but it definitely was nice that I did do it.
definitely. And that's a good, if we're going to start drawing parallels between that and why we're talking today about sort of getting into creative industries and managing a portfolio career, a lot of people be quite maybe quite fearful or just at least anxious and apprehensive about stepping into the world of work. And it's kind of good, just have a crack. As you said, you only conquer the fear by trying, you know.
Yeah, and sometimes the first step is really small. You know, you don't have to, you know, the first step is not saying to everybody you meet, I'm doing this and I'm going to commit, you know, all of my time and the next 5 years to this thing. It could literally just be writing down some little notes on a notepad for a little bit. And, you know, it can be tiny steps that just before you know it, you're on your way and, you know, it's happening. So yeah, for sure.
So whilst we're talking a bit about sort of the more personal side of things, outside of maybe sort of tangentially adjacent to the world of work, I think it's a good time to talk about your back. If you're happy to talk about it, could you talk about what has happened to your back, how it's impacted your life, and how do you manage it?
Yeah, so for the last, it's actually getting on for nearly 10 years now, which is really grim. I've had a chronic back condition, which has been caused by having 2 herniated discs in my lower back, and the symptoms of that has been varying levels of pain pretty much constantly. It's had points of being so bad that my sort of everyday basic activities, getting dressed, shopping, cooking, have been really, really impinged, which has been, you know, really, really difficult, especially being at university, which, you know, doing a very stressful, high intensity course, and climbing. Yeah, it's not been easy, but it has taught me a lot about myself and about my limits, and about the importance of not saying yes to everything people ask of me. But yeah, certainly over the last year with all the lockdowns, it has given me an opportunity to take a lot of time for myself, which I haven't done in a while. And actually the first lockdown came at a moment where I was kind of considering like leaving everything and going home to stay with my mum for a bit and just trying to figure out what was going on with my back because it got really bad. Yeah, so I don't know, I think when I think about a lot of the stuff that I've managed to do over the last 8 years with that in mind, I definitely feel quite proud of myself because it's made it a lot more challenging. Yeah,
definitely. And as you're saying, your day-to-day activities are impinged upon.
Yeah.
It sounds as if that sort of the versatility of your current world of work, where not every day is the same. It's not like you're sitting down at the same desk in the same chair for 8 hours a day. It sounds like this is actually quite a good fit for you on a personal level to manage your physical health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely, I couldn't do a 5-day-a-week job at the moment still. I would love to be able to, but yeah, it's something that is still limiting. But yeah, as you say, I think it's helped me realize how much I enjoy doing very versatile work, because it's been a necessity for me to do quite versatile work. It's definitely how my mind works. I like to chop and change and do different things. So yeah, it's been like a mixture of kind of being forced to do certain things in a certain way, but also learning a lot about how I work and what works and what doesn't work for me as just a person as well, not just in regards to my back. So yeah.
I think a lot of people can take a lot from that, even if they don't themselves suffer with any sort of chronic pain for the life. Which,
look after your back.
Look after your back. Stretch, please, everyone. Stretch.
Yeah.
So at UAL, you study, you graduate, you join Grey Moth. So hopefully viewers can see sort of the benefits to narrowing down that sort of that interest, but not deciding to specialize just for the sake of it. The sort of that narrowing down of interest and choosing higher education, I think, for the right reasons. But you're now a filmmaker. You've got a degree, but you also need to know a huge amount about tech, or at least that's how it seems to me as a muggle on the outside. So what do you use for your job tech-wise? Maybe you could just give us a little list of the stuff you use, and then how did you learn to use it?
So I chop and change between about 3 different like camera setups at the moment. So I use for the channel, we film with a Sony GH5 and a Ronin S and Ronin SC gimbal. So they're like a sort of little frame that the camera goes on, and it steadies it so it doesn't wobble around. You can tell when we got it because our videos suddenly got really slick and smooth. And then for work I shoot mostly with a Canon C200, which is quite a big camera. Like it's just like this box, and then you kind of add everything else onto it. I often go with the biggest lens because I really like long shots where it's really zoomed in with like soft focus and stuff. Not great for my back because then I have to lug that thing around all day, but seems to be my style. And also a Blackmagic Cine Pro camera. I think that's what it's called. It's got like a really long name and I get the words muddled up, but that's the gist.
I wouldn't know if you did or didn't.
But yeah, we use that on a gimbal as well, for sort of
software-wise.
Software I use Adobe Premiere Pro to edit on, as well as DaVinci Resolve, which is like a colouring software. I kind of learnt on Premiere through uni because that's what we used, but before then I'd been using Final Cut Pro, which is the Mac version. It's a lot, but most of this stuff most and all of the camera stuff I've learned within the last 1.5 years on the job. I had like a basic good understanding of cameras and just the interface of cameras, but I'd never used, even through uni I didn't pick up a camera. So I did a 3-year film course and I didn't touch a camera.
Wow.
I know, which is mad. I think even I was kind of put off by the kind of quite male energy. Even on my course, all the directors of photography were guys, and I just kind of, I was interested in other things as well. But now I freaking love cameras. It's so fun. But yeah, it's like you definitely don't have to know how to use every single camera under the sun to work in cameras. You just need to understand a bit about how they work, which is not difficult to come by. Yeah, it doesn't rely on your access to the equipment to be good.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's change tack a little bit right now. So you don't just work as a filmographer. I got in touch with you through Instagram because I am a climber, as I said earlier on. So I follow your YouTube channel with the Bouldering DabRats.
Yeah.
We have covered YouTube a couple of times in this Creative Career series, so don't worry about going into too much detail about the YouTube side of things. But can you talk about your channel and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so DabRats was born out of a dream to have more content on YouTube for women with a sort of sport context, because we'd been watching other YouTube channels, especially around climbing, and they were at the time all men bar like one, I think. So we just wanted something that was just more representational for us, where we could watch ourselves. But that didn't exist, so we had to literally watch ourselves. So yeah, we started it. I was in my second year of university, and this was me and my friend Di, who I still run it with, and it's been going ever since. And yeah, it's I suppose it's each episode is very, very casual. It's just us filming a climbing session, and chatting a lot of nonsense, and our kind of whole, I guess our whole like message is to just have a fun time and not worry about what you look like or how good you are. Yeah, and it's just kind of our little climbing journey.
Could you talk about whether the channel's monetized and whether you do make any sort of profits out of it, and does it sort of sustain itself?
Yeah, so it does sustain itself, definitely. It doesn't sustain us yet, which would be nice. But yeah, I mean, so we use Patreon, which is like a subscription kind of thing. People can sign up and they get little extra videos and stuff. We've done like a podcast on there. So yeah, that's what the shout outs are for. We shout out people's names and often get them the pronunciations really, really wrong, which people think are quite funny. But yeah, we monetize the channel, so the videos are monetized, but that's not our main source of income for the channel. Has been selling t-shirts, and that money bought us our camera, which we use. So we used to use a camera that I borrowed from my boyfriend, but now we have our own gear, which is really cool. And that's something that I never could have afforded myself. So it's definitely, yeah, helped itself, and yeah, it's really cool.
The other string to your bow is the Beta magazine. You are the co-founder of that one. And how did that come about, and what do you do within that project as well?
So that started in like May last year during lockdown, and I was approached by Emily, who I had kind of got to know online. She'd been like a follower of the channel, and we just kind of chatted a bit online. Like I'd started following her. She's really funny. So she sort of approached me and said, like, I'm thinking about starting this magazine, but I just don't know how to go about it. Would you be interested in helping me? So I was like, yeah, of course, I can't turn that down. So we like came up with the name together and launched it online. And now she's kind of like the main organizer and runner of that. It's definitely kind of, she just loves writing and everything. I'm more of the sort of visual person, so I come in and say, oh, we need more photos, which is fun, and people have been really excited about it, so it's been really nice.
And you mentioned right at the start as well, and I think it's cool to flag it up again, that the magazine and also your DabRats channel focuses on sort of increasing representation for, your focus is mostly women, but also with Beta Mag, a lot of sort of LGBTQ plus community, ethnic minorities, abilities, disabilities. Yeah, it's great. It's really good stuff, and we'll put a link to that in the description of this video.
Yeah.
I'm going to circle back to what you mentioned earlier on about sort of managing fear, and like the first step might be a small step, but it might sort of open up opportunity in some ways. And it seems that like a lot of these things have sort of come in your direction, sort of unsolicited. But I would say that you've put yourself in the position that makes that sort of thing more likely.
Yeah.
So you've come out of being in rural Devon, you've made yourself a life in London, and started putting content out on YouTube, which then led to the magazine involvement. So I'd say that's a pretty cool approach. And whilst these projects I think are still in their infancy, really, it's only Beta Magazine's not even been running a year yet.
Yeah.
And they could well develop into income streams in their own right, but I think they help to grow and sort of diversify your skill set as a creative. You're doing stuff that you weren't doing before, and editing a magazine and putting out stuff on YouTube. And I look at that as your CPD, your continuous professional development. The sort of thing that, if you were working in a more sort of traditional corporate environment, you would be getting training opportunities all the time. And if you are self-employed, you don't tend to get that so much. But it sounds like you're making that for yourself in being involved in these different projects. That's how I look at it. Anyway, here's my 2 cents.
Yeah. No, completely. And like DabRats was a huge factor in me getting my job at Grey Moth, you know, because I had been alongside uni essentially running my own production company, you could kind of say, you know, it's a media outlet. And yeah, that was a huge factor in my boss like wanting me to come on board, and like knowing that I had this other passion, and you know that I was motivated enough to do that. So yeah, it certainly, if DabRats doesn't end up being my main source of income one day, there's definitely no doubt in my mind that it will help me get wherever I will end up. So yeah, it's money and time well spent.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of time, we're running a little bit longer than I'd aimed to, so let's wrap it up. Let's get to those big questions that I ask everyone that comes on Creative Careers. So let's talk about your top tips for young filmmakers.
Yes, I've thought about this so much, but I think I have 2 that are maybe more practical. One that I've sort of already mentioned. The first is, don't be worried about buying and spending money on your own fancy filmmaking equipment. Some of the best films ever made were made on a shoestring and were made not with the latest equipment. Actually, what we all have in our pockets now is more advanced than filmmakers had 60 years ago, you know, people that made some of the most classic famous films to date. So if you have a phone with a camera, you could make a really amazing film. Good filmmaking comes from intuitiveness and emotional complexity and storytelling. It's not about how expensive your camera is. So remember that. And the other thing, which is quite obvious, but watch films, the best film education you could get. You know, if you're stuck at home during lockdown, or maybe it looks like university is a little while off, watching films, it's the best thing you could possibly do. Get a notebook, write down 3 things you liked about it, move on, watch another one. If there's someone in your family you can talk it through with, even better. I would really recommend a website called Mubi, which is it's a bit like Netflix, but it has all sorts of independent, foreign, really, really amazing kind of classical films that I had never heard of, but when you go to film school, they're like the basis, you know, the foundation, and they're just on this website. Like you'll just, you know, you'll stumble across them easily. So yeah, I really recommend that.
Look at that website as well, and actually they do have a lot of big titles as well.
Yeah, and they always have like a women-led or women-directed section as well, so that's really cool for, you know, any aspiring female filmmaker to get some inspiration. Yeah, that's really cool. And then the other thing is, I think a lot of people are put off the film industry because they think it's all to do with who you know, and that it's network based, and if you don't know, you know, if you don't have an uncle that works in BBC, then you're never going to get in. but actually part of that is true. It is really network based. People will talk about you if you're good, and they'll tell each other, and yeah, it takes one connection and you can get in. But the advantage of that is, like, if I recommend someone that's really good, that will give me points in the kind of film circles, then people will know, oh, Annie, she knows good people to recommend. So it serves everybody well to help one another, basically, is what I'm saying. And everyone is always looking to be the person that recommends the next good person coming in.
Right.
Like, if I discover you, the next great filmmaker, that's good for me.
Me?
You.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so don't look at networking as this sort of exclusive club. It's actually looking to open its arms to people who've got skills.
People are desperate to know the next good talent. They want to help you. They want to say that they helped you. So yeah, it's opportunities rather than daunting, scary. Yeah.
Nice. So my final question, Annie, before we part ways, is what should young people do right now? Well, I don't mean like right now. I mean like in about maybe 5 minutes time. Or perhaps after the live Q&A, to further their ambitions to get into filmmaking?
Oh gosh, right now. Well, I would go and look at Movie because it's really good. So I would just write a list about, if you think you want to do film, just write 5 reasons why. Because I think it's always good to know what brings you joy or passion in a thing. What is it that you love? And the more you know that, then the easier it will be to make decisions to cater to that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Annie, for all of your time and your insight. Young people will be able to join us on the Discord in probably about 2 minutes time, and they'll be able to speak to you directly to answer any of their questions.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Yes. Well, yeah, see you in a mo. Bye.
Right, we've recovered from that little technical blip. Thanks for sticking with me. A big thank you very much to Annie. There's some great tips for flipping your perspective of what is a sort of a perceived obstacle or a struggle or something and turning it into an opportunity. So that's really great, particularly that last little tip on networking in film industries. So if you'd like to hear a bit more from Annie, if you'd like to ask her any questions, join us on the Discord. That is running live as we speak. The Discord link will appear in the live chat when one of my wonderful little elves working behind the scenes has popped that into the live chat. You'll be able to follow that link straight over. Bear with us because one of those elves will have to assign you a role before you can join the live Q&A section on the left hand side of that Discord server. And there you will find myself, you'll find Annie, and you can ask us any questions you like about sort of creative careers, climbing, and anything that Annie spoke about in that interview, and maybe even just anything else, like what have you got for breakfast in the morning, that sort of thing. Or maybe not. Anyway, even though this is the very last episode of Creative Careers, please please share this video, and please get it in front of as many people you think will be interested, and any young people you think would benefit from the information that Annie shared with us this evening. So that's really, really good way of breaking into creative industries, is by sharing. So yes, please do that, and feel free to subscribe to Space Youth Services as a YouTube channel. There'll be more great young person focused content coming out over the next few weeks and months. So yeah, please do that. Thank you very much to everyone that has supported this programme all the way through from Series 1, all of our speakers. Thank you to Carlos behind the scenes, to Rich and Laura, and also to Space for helping this run, to AYCH for co-partnering with us on this one, and to Interreg for the funding for running this project. It's been great. So that's enough from me. I've been Callum. This has been Creative Careers. Join us on the Discord, find that link, and thank you and good night.